Yo, what's shaking, everybody? Welcome back to part 2 of the Monday Overreaction show here on the Orange Bloods Texas Football Channel. I'm Geoff Ketchum. That's Anwar Richardson. We're still in white. Hopefully, if you watched video number 1 earlier today, the doorbell won't ring in the second part of the Overreaction Monday show, brought to you by the fine people at Rogue Apothecary, the rogueshop.com. They are the sponsor. Show them the gummies. Show them the thing that those are my sleep aids.
100 milligrams, baby.
100 milligrams and you sleep like a baby. Check them out, therogueshop.com. He's got a little bit. Show them the good stuff. All the good stuff.
And then the salt, right?
People love this.
Yes.
There are people that swear that their body and their joints and their knees ache, and then they get the salve, and then it is life suddenly is a lot better.
Yes.
Speaking of life being a lot better, Texas football, as it begins spring football tomorrow, they're hoping that life is a lot better in year 2 under Steve Sarkisian. We're going to be doing Texas football spring practice content out the wazoo over the course of the next month. Like Hercules, like help us in the middle of this offseason. Anwar, it's already been like 4 months for us of like inventing things to talk about. Tomorrow, Quinn Ewers. The story of tomorrow is that Quinn Ewers has his first day of practice as a Texas Longhorn. He's an interesting topic because of what he has to be in year 1 if this program is really going to take a step forward. He really does have the weight of the world from an expectation standpoint on his shoulders. And I think my biggest overreaction to the idea that he takes his first practice snap tomorrow in a Longhorn uniform is that Texas fans probably should slow down during the spring. You can get crazy in August. I'll let you have that. But in the spring, you should probably allow for him to, practice with his new coaches and players and teammates for the first time. And, oh, by the way, it is not a great offensive line protecting him this spring. The cavalry's on the way, but this is still an offensive line that gives people squeamish feelings. So I am going into this spring, but my overreaction is everybody needs to at least chill out a little bit on the Quinn Ewers front. Allow for him to grow up a little bit, because everything that we heard from sources in Columbus about his 1 semester at Ohio State was that he did look like a guy that still needed to make some adjustments at this level, that it wasn't, in their estimation in year 1, add water, instant All-America candidate. And I think that Texas fans are going to want Quinn Ewers to be great right away out of necessity, when being good initially would be a really good first step for him.
Yeah, it's interesting. So for those who don't know and aren't on Orange Bloods, Ketch writes a column every week. It's called, his 10 Thoughts from the Weekend. Runs every Sunday night. And he does a buy or sell portion of it where he takes questions from people within the Orange Bloods community. And, he answers it. And one of the questions, Ketch, was, does Quinn Ewers pass for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns versus Alabama? And you talk about pump the brakes. I was like, wow, are we doing this in March? Like in March, yes. Are we really talking about Quinn Ewers going off versus Bama in not even 1 spring practice under his belt? And we're doing, and it's like, so to your point of, can we pump the brakes? But that just happened. Like, that was just last night, a few hours ago, as we record this thing. There is such a high expectation, Ketch, of what Quinn will be able to do. And it's weird, Ketch, and then as I think about my tenure here, getting here since 2014, so it's 8 years, closing in on 10. I can't remember a quarterback having as many lofty expectations. I remember people hoping that a quarterback would be good. The closest I can see was, there was a lot of hype about Sam being able to come in and be able to kind of right the ship. But I haven't seen something like this where there's a guy that's expected to come in and essentially in some regards be the savior of the program. It is a lot of pressure that's being put on him. It's a lot of pressure on a 19-year-old young man who's a redshirt freshman that hasn't played since his junior year, hasn't played since his junior year in high school. He skipped the senior season.
It's crazy to think that Westlake game is the last game. I mean, he came onto the field in Ohio State last year, right? And took like 2 snaps.
I think something like that. Yeah, something like that.
Hasn't thrown a pass. And like just in the event that someone in the comment section wants to say, whoa, he came on in Ohio State Boston College game and handed it off once. He hasn't played in a game since that Austin Westlake loss. And I don't know. In reality, that's just a season. I mean, we were talking about Casey Thompson last year making his first start. What was it, in 4 years?
Yeah, something crazy.
Remember that? It was like when we were still writing about Casey Thompson and like all the things that he still needed to do. I don't know, man. I look at Ewers and I think to myself, on one hand, he's the highest rated prospect from a football playing standpoint that the Texas football program has had in 20 years when Vince Young committed. I mean, this isn't, not many programs not named Alabama are getting multiple number 1 overall players in the entire, set of rankings on a consistent basis. That's hard to do. Texas, it's taken 20 years and he's that guy. So you know why people would be excited. However, Vince Young struggled in his first set of spring workouts. Hell, Vince struggled into his second, third spring workouts. Like, it didn't happen right away for Vince. Colt McCoy, in his first set of spring workouts, the thought process at the end of them was that he was going to lose the job to Jevin Sneed, who had just showed up that semester. You look at James Brown, and I mean, even Sam Ehlinger to a certain extent, for all of the Sam has moxie and he has the intangibles and the alpha male, he didn't perform as an elite quarterback in that first set of spring workouts. And it's one of the reasons why the battle between him and Buechele went into the fall. Like, it is this college football at high levels isn't easy. And I think the expectations is he will adjust quickly. But like, if he has a bad, in the first scrimmage, Hudson Card throws for a couple of touchdowns and Ewers doesn't, don't freak out. My Monday overreaction is don't overreact. We know that he's going to be the starter in the fall. I mean, it feels like you have to be pretty naive to think that this quarterback battle is so even and fair that Hudson Card could win it, because you have to ignore a lot of extenuating circumstances that really make it hard to think that Card could win the job. So Ewers is going to be the starter. What really matters is that he's making progress day in and day out. He's getting a little bit better every day. That at the end of practice number 5, he's better than the practice 1. The practice 10, better than 5. And by the time he gets into the spring game, everybody around says, you should have seen how much progress he's made since the first practice. That's what you want from a young guy. That's what you want for that's what you want for Justice Finkley. It's like, Justice had kind of a quiet 4th day of practice. It happens. You hope by 13, 14, and 15, you're like, that guy's one of our best players. Give these guys some time to grow up. Don't be toxic football fan. That's all I'm saying.
Is there anything that Hudson Card can do in spring practice that would move the needle?
To who?
You. How about that? I'll start with you.
look, I still think Hudson Card's going to play on Sundays. I say that after the disastrous Arkansas performance. I say that after a freshman season that almost makes him unplayable in Austin, because barring injury, Texas fans are not going to want to volunteer him back into the lineup. But so I think this is, I haven't waned off of, he's got an immense set of physical tools, but he's still developing, and that part is very clear. I mean, I think the thing that became really clear about Hudson Card last year for me is he just wasn't ready. And the Longhorns program, and Quinn Ewers, look, that might be here's the thing. What's my big concern point for Quinn Ewers? It's that in the rare times in high school when he actually got pressure in his face and he was made to feel uncomfortable, he flinched. I'm not saying he played poorly against Austin Westlake in that state championship game, but he threw the ball up for grabs a few times when the pressure was in his face. And it's the thing that you don't know about a quarterback, any quarterback, until they show up in college and they got to face the heat, the real heat, not that practice heat, the fire that comes from an opposing team getting in your face. I don't know that about Quinn Ewers. I don't know that he's ready. We won't know he's ready probably until that Alabama game. And then what might we learn in that Alabama game? He's not all the way ready. You know, like there are going to be steps that need to be taken. I think Quinn Ewers by the end of the season has a chance to be one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12. I don't assume for a second that he shows up in game one and is ready to be that guy. I have way too much respect for how difficult this sport is, especially when you're not surrounded by guys that are helping you all the time. I mean, for all the criticism of Hudson Card, take him out of that Arkansas game, and almost everybody else on that team embarrassed themselves that night. But when you're the quarterback and you embarrass yourself, it just is in front of a much wider audience. It's way more memorable. No single offensive lineman is remembered for that Arkansas game the way Hudson Card is, but I would argue their performance levels were equally awful.
Yeah, and the thing is, Ketch, for me, one of the things I keep thinking about and going back to is, and it's all related to the Hudson Card situation. But the thing that you said something a while ago, and I've done a lot of thinking. I think you're actually 100% correct on. When we start talking about the Quinn Ewers conversation, so Steve Sarkisian's legacy will be directly affected by what Quinn does. And I started thinking about it. I was on my walk this morning, and I started thinking about when Charlie was here and his inability to find a quarterback was ultimately to his detriment. Like, it's the thing that worked against Charlie from the time that he had that first spring where David Ash, was questions about what he's going to go to. And then, you had Tyrone Swoops not look good in that spring, and Charlie still feeling like they're going to be okay because they would win with defense. And then, of course, Ash plays in one game. He's done. And then Swoops, tries to do the best that he can, gets him to, 6 wins in a bowl game, but it never really took off. And I started thinking about, Tom to a certain degree, right? And it was, okay, he inherited, Buechele and then Ellinger, and there was kind of like that back and forth in year one. And then eventually Sam wins the job. And Sam ends up being, I guess, probably on the Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks, no? Who's your top 5?
Well, there's only 4 on Mount Rushmore.
4 as well. Okay, who's your top 4? Once you get past your top 2,
there's 4 obvious ones. 5, probably 5 obvious ones.
Okay.
So Sam doesn't crack my top 5. Although, so Vince is 1.
Mm-hmm.
2 is Colt McCoy. 3 is James Street. 2 national championships, never lost a game as a starter. And that's pretty good. 4 is James Brown. And I stand on a table for James Brown anytime the moment calls for it. 2 legit outright conference championships, and the guy that changed the direction of the rivalry between Texas and Texas A&M in the 90s. And then it's hard to speak about his college career, but Bobby Lane as an NFL Hall of Famer and a guy that won multiple conference championships in the late 40s. It's hard to compare modern versus old, but most Texas fans who are big football fans, they like to make sure people know that Bobby Lane played at Texas. And it's hard for me to put a quarterback on Mount Rushmore at Texas if you aren't beating Oklahoma consistently and you haven't won a conference championship.
Fair. So if we stick with that, exactly what you just said, and everything that you said is fair, that ends up being what Tom's legacy was, like having a good quarterback, right?
But the Hall is pretty good.
Very good. I mean, back up at the with the Colts right now. I mean, so they, number one guy until they bring in someone. But that ends up being his legacy because he got a very good quarterback, but a guy that only got him to 1 Big 12 championship, in the 4 years that he played. And you start looking at Sarkisian, you looked at in year 1, what happened with that quarterback battle that really didn't yield much when it was all said and done. And you give him, you say, okay, sorry, you've accomplished a lot in your career. Like, we're not going to ding you and knock you down any notches based off of 1 year where maybe you didn't read the room, correctly as relates to Hudson Card or Casey Thompson, right? Not going to knock you for that at all. And by the way, I still give him credit because I still think, as much as, Hudson gets knocked for the Arkansas game, I still like to point out, like, when he did come in later in the year, when Casey got injured, I thought he played better. I just thought
the flash. It just wasn't enough.
Yes, but he got hurt in that game as well, and he showed tough and gritty and all that other type of stuff. So I give Hudson some credit that he deserves there. But the Quinn thing becomes the legacy, right? It ultimately, how Sark coaches Hudson Card won't be his legacy. Like, everyone will be like, okay, that's cool. How you coach up this guy, though, that's the legacy. That's what Texas fans want to see. That's what Arch Manning wants to see. They want to see what you do with this guy when you're able to have that kind of success and duplicate it here. Because last thing I'll say, Ketch, give me 30 seconds, I'll let you jump back in. We've seen too many coaches over the past couple of years in the major sports come to Texas and struggle. Shaka Smart was a very accomplished coach before he got here, and then he struggled. Charlie Strong was a very accomplished coach, sought after. He struggled. Tom Herman struggled in certain areas here at Texas. Steve Sarkisian was supposed to be one of the best hires, and then he doesn't go to a bowl game. So it's, in order to break that streak, Quinn's success is going to have to be a part of it.
You hit on where I'll end on, which is the thing that you would probably feel best about as a Texas fan, for my money, is that this is supposed to be a good coaching staff. And I don't think a year ago, any coach on the staff can raise his hand and say, maybe Stan Drayton could raise his hand and say, I did an excellent job. I'm completely content with the way my guys played. And yeah, let's do a job evaluation right now. I feel like Drayton could get away with it. And to be fair, he had the most talented player on the team, which he recruited. To the victor go the spoils.
Correct.
He built his. He did craft Roshan Johnson from quarterback to running back, and we could argue until we're blue in the face and about how hard or difficult that is. Again, to the victor go the spoils. At quarterback, at receiver, at tight end, at offensive line, everybody on defense. It felt like a year ago the Texas coaching staff took an L. But we know that this is a good staff that has experience, that have coached really good football players, that have won championships, that have achieve success at multiple locations. It's a good staff. Steve Sarkisian is regarded as an elite offensive mastermind. The thing that should make everybody feel a little bit better about Quinn is it's hard to think that these coaches would put two stinkers up in a row. I mean, I bet they can all acknowledge that wasn't good enough a year ago. Knowing what's not good enough oftentimes is the thing that helps you get to good enough. Sometimes you have to, can't do that again. So I think the staff, along with the players, learned something in year one together. And I think that if there's a reverse to the mean, or the cream rises to the top, or whatever metaphor you want to use that projects Steve Sarkisian to do better in year two, the recipient of that stands to reason that it would be Quinn Ewers. That no player in the program better benefits from everybody else on the team carrying more weight than it did a year ago. I think more so than the young quarterback. Again, the thing that's most difficult to accept about the Hudson Card situation in Fayetteville a year ago was that there were some equally horrific performances across that offense. I mean, as bad as he was, he could have played good and still been horrible because
Arkansas rushed 3 guys and still was getting to them
every play. And it's bad when at the end of games, coaches go back and look at the film and go, well, there were a couple of plays there that could 60 snaps. Then you're looking back on the 2 or 3 that had a chance to work. Mm-hmm. So I have to believe in year two, everybody across the board does a better job. If they don't, this thing is sunk, man. Like you're not going to be able to convince me that 2 bad years in the first 2 years of a new coaching tenure end up with roses and smiles. It's hard for me to believe that. Real quick, the only way Quinn Ewers can lose the job to Hudson Card, there is a way. There's one way. And it's that Ewers is a turnover machine in practice. And I wouldn't predict that to occur, but it's the thing that almost got Tyrone Swoops the starting job, is that going into the season, a head coach can convince himself, we just don't want to be terrible. And if you're convinced that one guy is good enough, but he's not making every day the same mistakes, it's the thing they pointed to last year when Card won the job. It was so close, but Casey was a little more turnover prone than Hudson was in practice. Although, to be fair, Card wasn't a turnover, but it would have helped Card had he been a turnover machine. Had he just gone to Fayetteville and turned the ball over a couple times in the first half, they'd have pulled him. Instead, he just didn't do anything. And then eventually he makes the big turnover, one, and then they finally pull him out of the game. If Quinn Ewers is a turnover machine in practice, feels like a really big if. We are essentially, but, there's a world out there where Quinn Ewers every day makes the best 5 throws in practice, but the 3 worst throws as well. And coaches really struggle with what to do with a guy whose basement as a player is potentially so low when it matters most. So that's Card's only opening. If there's a world out there where, forget about how good Quinn Ewers is, if he's constantly making the 3 worst advised throws in practice on a pretty routine basis, Card's got a chance, because they're not playing that dude against Alabama, Quinn Ewers, out of the gate, if they think he's got a 5 turnover game inside of him, because in practice it's 2 or 3 times. And it's like, well, that's what he's doing against our bad defense. What's he going to do against all those NFL dudes? So I don't think it happens. It feels very much like the Jim Carrey. So you're telling me there's a chance, but I think outside of injury, that's the thing that Card has to hope he can hang his hat on. That Ewers, because he's so youthful, because he's so confident in his ability, that he's overconfident and makes poor decisions. But other than that, it's hard to imagine a world where Quinn Ewers is at QB1 start of September.
Yeah, and one of the last things I'll just say, Ketch, and add in on that, and I think this is a point that you and I have made previously, but at the time, I think it's a good time to reemphasize it. One of Card's biggest struggle that I think he'll have this offseason is that no matter what Steve Sarkisian sees, he's not going to 100% believe it. Like at the end of the day, he's going to see it. He's going to say, okay, this is good in practice, but I know what happened when I bought this hook, line, and sinker the last time and we got to a game and it blew up in my face. And I think we know Hudson Card from the day he arrived at Texas, everybody's talked about how good of a practice player he is. The former staff talked about how good he was. This staff talked about how good he was. And all we've heard about is the AI practice. And I think that his danger and his struggle is going to be, how do I convince these guys that this will translate when it counts? And I'm not quite sure he's going to be able to do that. I think that's going to be his challenge, because I think at the end of the day, it's, even though the devil may be sometimes better than the devil that you don't, in this instance, they're going to look at it and say, yeah, but Quinn, all the stuff that he does really well, I think will be the thing that overshadows it. So then it's going to be, well, the defender made a good play on the ball, but, Quinn, we just got to work on the location there. All the little things where I think Hudson has such an uphill battle with this. It's because they've seen him practice before, Ketch. They know what to expect from him on practice.
I think one of the failures, you could make a case this is the biggest failure that the Texas coaching staff made collectively as a whole last season. They didn't practice. I mean, 33, 34 practices together before the first game. They did nothing in that practice, all the spring, fall, all of it combined, to really have a true handle on what it had at quarterback. That can't happen this time. If that means I'm not saying the quarterbacks have to get hit. They have to play faster and perform at levels in practice that allow them to have a better idea of what the hell they actually have. Because Sarkisian was stunned by the Hudson Card that he saw against Arkansas. That's his fault, because you can't tell me there wouldn't be simulations that you can do in practice that would have revealed what was revealed about Hudson. It was clear he just wasn't ready. Everything was too fast. His own coach said he was seeing ghosts. So if that's the case, if that never revealed itself during spring and August practices, that's the coach's fault for not fostering an environment that truly prepares the team for what it's going to face during a game. So this season, I think one of the things they've got to do in March and April and August is put these quarterbacks under some conditions that tell them some real truths about their quarterbacks, because it really did bring the season down a year ago. It really did. Everything about the failures in that Arkansas game created problems that in some instances never got solved. And, I think that's one of the real challenges that Steve Sarkisian has to make. They've all got to be better. And if they are, I think both Hudson Card and Quinn Ewers will benefit from all of that. Look, a lot said about the quarterbacks, from about 10 different angles. Leave your comments in the comments section. I'm curious. What we may have to do later in the week, Anwar, is a comment section video.
Yeah.
Take the comments from the first couple of videos in the week and take the best comments and then do a video about all of the bad shit people said about us in the videos.
I like it. Mike Rockman, put them on the screen too. I like it. We're not scared. We're not scared. We're never
No,
scared.
that's why I said it. It sounds more fun than that sounds scary. So look, leave a comment in the comments section about any of the things that we've said related to this quarterback discussion and the coaches. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, get the notifications, tell your friends all about us. This will be the place that you're going to want to be over the course of the next month, along with orangebloods.com, the website and the YouTube channel. Those two things together, an absolute, complete, comprehensive breakdown of everything you'll ever need to know about this Texas football team as it goes into the spring and out of the spring on April 23rd. Until next time, tomorrow, when we may or may not be color coordinated. You just never know. Shout out to the guys at therogueshop.com. Hold it up one more time.
One more again.
Yes, this is your Monday Overreaction show brought to you by therogueshop.com. You guys be good to each other on this. I don't know if it's rainy where you guys are, but it's rainy where I'm at. You guys be careful, and we'll see you tomorrow. Later.